What is going on, everybody? Laoch here. So, if you haven't noticed, first and foremost, before we even get started with the show, I've changed the name of the show. It is now The Hammer Drops, and I am your host, Laoch. It's no longer Laoch's When the Hammer Drops. I wanted to shorten it down a little bit to make it easier for people who watch or who listen to this on podcast platforms to be able to find it. A lot easier just by tapping in The Hammer Drops on all your favorite podcast platforms, and this way it's going to pop up nice and easy. So, again, if you're listening to this on podcast, that's all you got to do. If you're watching this on Rumble and YouTube, which this video will actually be in the entirety on YouTube and Rumble as well, because we're not getting into anything that will get me booted. So, yeah, so there we go. So, on today's show, folks, we are going to talk about, it's basically in my backyard right now. It's in Chicago. We're going to talk about Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson and his take on the unruly thugs that came out to downtown Chicago and terrorized people down there just because it was warm out, and that's okay for them to do, apparently. So we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about how Brandon Johnson, basically, in my opinion, this man is going to completely destroy Chicago and pretty much finish it off, I think, with his agenda. Problem is when you have two in a state, two progressive, far left Democrats, one as governor and now a mayor-elect, soon to be mayor next month. No good's going to happen of it. Look at all these other states. Look at Philadelphia. Same things happen in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Same things are happening out west in California, Oregon, Washington. There's a pattern here. But the progressive left or the left, or liberals, whatever you want to call them, they want to blame the Republicans, and not just any Republicans, because now apparently every Republican is a MAGA Republican. So we're all evil to the left. But yet we're the most peaceful. We don't go around burning cities. We don't go around rioting, looting, nothing like that. But yet we're the enemy. It's funny because you have politicians like Joe Biden, AOC, and all of them and Hakeem Hicks. Let's not forget him. No, not Hakeem. Hakeem Jeffries, or whatever the hell his name is. Hakeem Hicks was a Bears player. Sorry, Hakeem Hicks. Hakeem Jeffries. They all want to demonize Republicans because every Republican is now, or a conservative is now, a MAGA Republican, which, that's another story. So what's going on in Chicago? If you live in Chicago, if you've been watching, Fox News has brought to light some of the stuff that's going on. But if you live in Chicago, like most of my listeners live in Illinois, they know exactly what's happening in Chicago. I will say this, folks, in May, next month, when he takes office, have your head on a swivel. Make sure when you go into the city, or any city for that matter, don't go by yourself. Be with somebody else, 2-3 more people. Even then, it's not going to matter because these thugs that are coming around to terrorize people, and I have a video of some of it. I'm not going to give them much of a light because I don't believe in it, and I think they're just nothing but pond scum and thugs for what they did. There's no excuse for it. I don't care if you're a teenager. If you're a teenager, then it starts with the home life with the parents. If the parents aren't there to discipline their kids, then there's a problem. But it also doesn't help that we have a DA that is Soros-backed, that is very light on crime. Our mayor is obviously going to be very light on crime, along with a governor that, again, light on crime. But hey, Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. Yet, something that our media here doesn't talk about is the black on black crime, young black males killing young black males or whatever. But we don't want to discuss that because that is not part of the narrative. What is part of the narrative is coming after your guns and getting rid of them. That's the narrative. But where's Black Lives Matter at with all of this killing that is going on in our streets from black on black crime? And now, unfortunately, there's a lot of black on white crime, which will never be racist or anything like that. Or, you know what I'm saying? Where it was, if it was a white person attacking a black person, now you're in, that's a racial crime and all that stuff. Now, if you are a black person and you commit acts of violence on a white person, it's okay. You see, you're starting to see what's going on here. So that's what we get to deal with now. And I do have something that I'm going to show you, and it's quite interesting. And the only reason why I say it's interesting is because there's nothing about it in mainstream media whatsoever. Yet it happened. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we get going. So let's go back to Brandon Johnson. So I'm just going to show you this video here real quick, folks. This video, and then I'm going to show you his response. Here you guys go. Bear with me. So, as you can see there, what you might not have really seen was the fact that that group started beating on a woman and her son or boyfriend, white woman, white boyfriend or son or whatever, because, hey, that's the right thing to do. But yet, good old Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson, this is what he had to say about it.
Look, demonizing children is wrong. We have to keep them safe as well. Have you ever taught middle school? I have. Have you ever raised young people? Do you understand the risk that young people take just because they're young? Do you know that home plate is at the bottom of my stairs? I found that out when my son was sliding down those stairs trying to score. They're young. Sometimes they make silly decisions. They do. And so we have to make sure that we are investing to make sure that young people know that they are supported.
All right, that's where I'm going to stop it. Sometimes they make silly decisions. So making a silly decision by burning up cars, looting, criminal damage. I mean, I can name off a whole bunch of different felonies just right there. Add to that assault and battery for absolutely no reason. All they wanted to do was get inside their apartment complex to go home, and yet they get attacked. This, folks, is what Chicago is going to come down to. Now, there's other videos that are floating around. If you want to see them, I have some posted over on our TikTok page, as well as our Facebook page. You can go look at them there. I'm not going to give them any more of a pedestal to be able to, I'm not going to do it. I think what is going on in our city is ridiculous. Chicago was once a great city, especially when Mayor Daley was there. We didn't have this kind of stuff. And yet here we are today. Now, when you go down, I work in Chicago. So now when I go down to Chicago, I have to have my head on a swivel. Luckily, I work with a bunch of other people that kind of do the same thing. But if you're going to go down to the city at any time, make sure that you're not alone, especially when this mayor comes in. The police, from what I understand, that when that was going on, now the police really, their hands are kind of tied down in Chicago. But a lot of police were just going on by. I'm sure there's other things going on, but unfortunately, that lady, her son or boyfriend or whatever it was, got beat for absolutely no reason. I'm not going to say. Let's call it spade a spade. They got beat because they're white. Let's just face facts here, folks, because that's the narrative now. The attack on white people. That's what the progressive left wants, to divide us, and it's working. I personally can care less the color of somebody's skin. It's the character that counts to me, not the skin color. And that's how it should be for everybody. Yet, here we are. The left, they don't want that. They want the hatred. They want us divided because they know if we are divided, we're more easily conquered. And unfortunately, they're falling for it. With all this crime that's going on in Chicago, especially black on black crime, you would think that you'd have more leaders, community leaders coming out in protest about this. Yet, they're not. They're quiet. Where's Black Lives Matter at? You know how many black children are being murdered in Chicago daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? And yet, the only time we hear from organizations like Black Lives Matter is when it's a cop doing his, not necessarily doing his job, but even if he was doing his job. And, the criminal had a gun and the officer had to shoot. That's when Black Lives Matter is going to be coming out, when it's most convenient for them. Not when it's with all this other stuff that's going on. Why would it matter to them? This is what's sick about our society today. You have these organizations that originally probably started off for the right reasons, but as we keep moving on today, we are learning that it's not. But I can sit here until I'm blue in the face and continue talking about that, but it doesn't matter. And yet you have leaders from the South and West sides complaining, bitching and moaning about companies like Walmart, McDonald's, big corporations pulling out. Well, can you blame them? If you go down to Walmart on the South or West side, they've been looted, they've been shoplifted, destroyed. How many times? How many times do they have to go through this before they pull out and say, screw it, it's not worth it to us anymore? That's exactly what they're doing. You have big corporations like McDonald's that can't get, the talent that they need to work for them because people don't want to live in the city anymore. People don't want to work in the city anymore because they don't want to have to worry about if they're going to make it home, or if they're going to get carjacked, or if they're going to get held up. Safety is the number one thing why people don't want to come to work in Chicago. And that's why you have big corporations leaving, which is now going to make Brandon Johnson impose a head tax. Now, what a head tax is, there's two versions of it. One is they're going to tax the people who are living in the suburbs coming down to Chicago to work. 3%, I believe it is. So 3% of your salary will be a tax just to go down to work in Chicago. Just so they don't have to raise property taxes, which they probably will. And then the other tax is they're going to tax corporations in Chicago for each person that works for them, which will in turn get more companies to leave. But there's no problem here, right, folks? So, as I promised, one more thing before we leave. I'm going to show you this here. And then that'll be it for the show for today. Here we go. So, as you can see right here, these three gentlemen right here were part of a murder in Alabama. So, and this is what Sarah Fields said. Why is almost no one talking about the shooting in Alabama that occurred this past week that left 4 children dead and 32 injured? The shooter shot up a Sweet 16 birthday party. So the reason why you're barely hearing about this tragedy is because it doesn't fit the agenda. The guns they used were obtained illegally, meaning if guns were banned, it wouldn't have mattered to these monsters. This tragic loss happened. There was a small blip in the news and it disappeared, which is 100% true. Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws, and yet we still have murders by people with guns at an astounding rate. But yet the left still wants to preach take away the guns, take away the guns. We won't be safe if you take away the guns. What will make a criminal fear a law-abiding citizen? They won't. Because they know if guns were banned or taken away, that they have the guns, so then this way they can get away with anything they want. So that's what we're dealing with, folks. Chicago, unfortunately, it will be Detroit soon. The old Detroit. Run down, business is gone. And I think Brandon Johnson's going to be the one that puts the final dagger in the coffin of Chicago. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely, if you can, make sure that you subscribe to whatever channel that you're watching this on, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, or any of the podcast platforms. Leave me a 5-star review, 5 stars in a review. That's going to help me in the algorithms as well. And we'll see you in the next one. You guys be good to one another.